My girlfriend tried to trap me with another man's baby. She didn't know I was already snipped. This didn't explode overnight. It unraveled. And the scariest part is that, for a long time I thought I had found something rare. This is a throwaway for obvious reasons. I was 21 when I met her. We'll call her Paige. I wasn't looking for anything serious at the time. I worked in a trade. Good money for my age. Long hours. Physically exhausting work, but stable. I liked knowing that when I clocked out, the day was done. No office politics. No fake smiles. A couple of buddies at work liked doing double dates with their girlfriends. They'd been trying to fix me up for months. I kept telling them I wasn't dating anyone. So they solved the problem for me. Paige was a coworker of one of their girlfriends. Quiet, soft-spoken, smart, nursing student. She didn't try too hard. She didn't demand attention. She seemed almost out of place in our loud, beer-heavy group. And that made her stand out more. That first night, she barely drank. She listened more than she talked. When she laughed, it felt genuine. Not performative. By the end of the night, we were sitting next to each other instead of across the table. I paid for her taxi home. She kissed me before she got out. And that was that. We started seeing each other regularly. She moved in 6 months later. Too fast? Yeah. Probably. But when you're young and everything feels smooth, you don't look for cracks. We didn't fight. Or if we did, it lasted 10 minutes. She cooked. I worked. She studied. We watched movies. Played games. Fell asleep on the couch. From the outside, we were stable. From the inside, I was content. Looking back, that was the first mistake. Contentment makes you lazy. 6 months into living together, something happened that should have snapped me awake. We were in bed. Condom broke. You know that split-second drop in your stomach when panic hits before logic does? That. I told her immediately. She didn't panic. She didn't even tense up. She just said calmly, "It's fine. I'm on birth control." I remember blinking. She had never mentioned that. She waved it off. "I told you. You were playing Fallout or something." I laughed. That checked out. Fallout New Vegas had my attention more than it should have back then. So I believed her. A week later, she got sick. Nausea. Bathroom trips. Couldn't keep food down. You know where this is going. Pregnant. I didn't yell at her. I didn't accuse her. I didn't even question timelines. I just felt the weight of it. She wanted to finish school. She talked about stability constantly. We weren't ready. She made the decision to get an abortion. Not me. Her. And she begged me not to tell her parents. That part should have stayed with me. Why hide something if your family isn't extreme? But I agreed. Because I loved her. Afterward, something shifted. For about 4 months, she was distant. Cold. Like I had done something wrong. Then one night, it was like a switch flipped. Affection returned. Sex returned. Normal returned. And I celebrated that. Second mistake. That scare changed something in me. Not emotionally. Practically. If I was going to stay with her long term, I needed control over one variable. I booked a consultation. Did the research. Asked the questions. Got the vasectomy. I didn't tell her. Before anyone jumps down my throat, I was going to. She was visiting family. Work was insane. Life moved fast. Then weeks passed. Then months. Then it felt unnecessary to bring up. We weren't trying for kids. She said she was on birth control. And honestly, a part of me wanted something that was mine alone. A safeguard. Insurance. I froze samples beforehand. I wasn't stupid. I just didn't want surprise fatherhood controlling my future. So I kept quiet. Not maliciously. Just strategically. 2.5 years passed. Promotions. Raises. Overtime. She was almost done with nursing school. We talked about engagement casually. We stopped using condoms entirely. She said she switched from pills to an IUD. That didn't bother me, because I knew something she didn't. Mid-August 2014, she got sick again. Not the normal, I ate something weird sick. This was the same pattern as before. Bathroom trips. Nausea that wouldn't let go. That drained. gray look in her face like her body was quietly filing a complaint. We tried to act normal for about 2 days. Then she missed class. Then she stopped pretending. And then one morning, she stood in the bathroom holding a test like it was a live grenade. "It's probably nothing," she said, voice tight. But her hands were shaking. The test turned positive so fast it felt personal. I remember the exact second the world split into 2 versions. 1. The version where I reacted like a normal boyfriend. 2. The version where I stayed calm long enough to survive what came next. I chose option 2. Not because I was brave. Because something in me, some cold internal switch, flipped. I hugged her. I told her it was going to be okay. I told her we'd figure it out. I said all the correct things. And she melted into me like she'd been carrying the weight alone. She looked so relieved that I didn't accuse her. Because of course I didn't accuse her. Why would I? I was snipped. And suddenly, that little oops decision I'd made years earlier wasn't just a secret. It was a locked door between me and a life sentence. That night, she cried in bed and whispered, "I'm scared." I stroked her hair and said, "I've got you." And I meant it in the most literal sense possible. I had her. I didn't sleep. Not in the dramatic way where you stare at the ceiling and spiral. In the practical way. I lay there thinking like a project manager. What do I know? She's pregnant. I can't be the father. She thinks I could be the father. We live in a situation where her parents have leverage. If I move wrong, I lose everything on paper even if I'm morally right. The next day, while she was napping on the couch, I made a phone call. Not to my friends. Not to my parents. Not to a therapist. To my company's attorney. I told him I needed a consult on paternity and liability, and I needed it discreet. He didn't ask questions. He just gave me a name. An older guy. Family law. Quiet reputation. The kind of attorney who doesn't advertise on billboards next to car accident lawyers holding giant checks. I met him in a small office that looked like it hadn't changed since 1997. He listened without interrupting. Then he asked one question that told me he was good. "Do you want to be right?" he said. "Or do you want to be safe?" I paused. "Safe." He nodded like he'd expected that answer. Then he laid it out in plain language. "In this state, I'm not automatically responsible unless I sign. If my name goes on the birth certificate, things get messy. If I act like the father, things can get messy depending on what I do and how it's documented. If I keep my mouth shut, keep my actions clean, and don't sign anything, I'm protected." Then he looked at me like he'd seen this story before. "You need proof," he said. "Not vibes. Not suspicion. Proof." I left with a checklist. And the strangest part? Once I had a checklist, I calmed down. Because that's what I do. I don't explode. I organize. I went home and played the supportive boyfriend. I went to doctor appointments. I carried her water bottle. I made dinner. I listened to her talk about names and due dates and how her parents were going to react. And inside, I started collecting data. First step, confirm the medical timeline. Second step, confirm what she told me and what she didn't. Third step, find the gap. Because there's always a gap. People don't lie perfectly. They lie in patches. And the patches never match the fabric. At some point, she said casually, "Well, I had the IUD put in, but it hurt so I had it taken out." The way she said it was almost rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in her head for a future conversation and was relieved she finally got to use it. I nodded. "Wow, that sucks," I said, and in my head I thought, "No, it doesn't. Not for you." Because that wasn't an oops. That was a controlled narrative. So I did something I'd never done before. I searched. Not her phone. Not her texts. I wasn't trying to play detective like some insecure guy. I looked in the one place people forget they've left footprints: email. People hide their sins in texts. They hide their plans in email. And she had hundreds. Appointment confirmations. Schedule changes. Reminders. Please arrive 15 minutes early. Bring your insurance card. Follow up. Removal. Some of it looked normal. And then I found the gap. Messages that weren't medical offices. Emails with weird subject lines. Tomorrow. Can you do 8? Same as last time. And then something that made my stomach go completely cold. A thread that included price. Not a medical bill. A number discussed the way people discuss a quote. At first, I thought the obvious thing. Then I kept reading and realized something worse. It wasn't as simple as cheating. It wasn't even as simple as for money. It was a pattern, a network, a set of contacts, a calendar. People don't accidentally build a calendar for betrayal. They build it because it's part of who they are. I sat in my car in a grocery store parking lot and scrolled until my thumbs hurt. And I remember thinking one sentence, very calmly. Oh, you're not messy. You're organized. Which meant two things. 1. She'd been doing this a long time. 2. She believed she was untouchable. And the truth is, she kind of was, because nobody suspected her. Not her parents. Not her friends. Not her teachers. Not me. Her whole personality was camouflage. Shy, quiet, sweet. The kind of girl people defend automatically. The kind of girl whose tears get believed on sight. And now she was pregnant with someone else's child while living with me. And I realized something else. If I confronted her now, I lose control. If I wait, I gain leverage. So I waited. From that day on, I became the best boyfriend she'd ever had. Not emotionally, strategically. I was consistent, helpful, supportive. I went to the store at midnight for cravings. I rubbed her back. I nodded when her parents talked about our family. I let people think I was stepping up. And in the background, I did two things. 1, I built my exit. I quietly rented an apartment across town. Not in my name publicly, just clean paperwork, private, no drama. I started moving things out slowly, one box at a time. I told her I was selling stuff for the baby fund. My gaming rig? Sold. Laptop? Sold. Extra clothes? Sold. She laughed and called me dramatic. I smiled and said, "It's all for us, baby." And she ate it up, because she wasn't looking for truth. She was looking for comfort. 2, I built my file. Screenshots, email printouts, timeline, dates, names, patterns. Not because I wanted to destroy her, because I wanted to make sure she couldn't destroy me. And the irony? The calmer I acted, the safer she felt. The safer she felt, the sloppier she got. People don't confess when they're pressured. They confess when they're comfortable. The week she was due, we ended up at the hospital. She was wheeled in. I walked beside her holding her hand like the devoted partner. Her parents arrived and gave me that look like, "Good boy. He's doing the right thing." We waited. 3 nights. She labored, screamed, cried, swore she hated me at one point, normal delivery stuff. And then the baby arrived. A few minutes later, a nurse said they wanted to take the baby for observation. Jaundice risk. Precaution. The baby was taken. She was exhausted, sweaty, pale, shaking. And then she looked at me with this soft, delusional smile. "What should we name our son?" I stared at her. And I swear, inside my head, I felt like that cat from Alice in Wonderland. Not because I was happy, because I'd been waiting for the exact right moment. I leaned in slightly. "Our," I repeated calmly. Her smile froze. Her eyes narrowed, confused. "What do you mean?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse. I didn't insult. I just said the truth like I was reading the weather. I had a vasectomy 6 months after we started dating. She blinked. Once, twice, and then her face collapsed. Not into tears yet. First into calculation. Like she was trying to run a mental math equation fast enough to outrun reality. Then her mouth opened, closed, opened again. She tried to speak, but no sound came out, and the silence was clean, pure, the silence of a person who realizes the lie is over. I held up my hand gently. "Don't," I said, calmly. "Save it." Tears started then. Not pretty tears. Panic tears. She reached for me like her body believed touching me could fix it. I stood up. "I'm not signing anything," I said. Then I walked to the nurse's station. Quietly, politely, and I told them, I'm not the father. I'm not her husband. I'm not signing a birth certificate. If my name appears anywhere, it's a mistake. They looked surprised. I offered proof if needed. They didn't ask. Hospitals see worse. I went back to her room one last time. She was sobbing now. Please, she whispered. I looked at her the way you look at a stranger who crashed your car and wants to discuss feelings. Never contact me again, I said. Then I left. When I left the hospital, I didn't disappear dramatically. I didn't block her. I didn't post anything online. I didn't tell mutual friends. I did something much more effective. I left an envelope. Inside it, for $100 in cash. My house keys. A short note. The note wasn't cruel. It wasn't accusatory. It said, this should help for a few days. I won't be back. Don't contact me. That's it. No explanation. No insults. Why the money? Because revenge isn't about emotion. It's about confirmation. I already knew what she'd been doing. What I didn't know was whether the pregnancy would change her. People sometimes pivot when consequences hit hard enough. So I ran a test. Would she get clean? B. Try to stabilize. C. Lean on family support. D. Or go straight back to the pattern. I didn't have to wait long. Through mutual circles and one very useful friend, I learned quickly. The money didn't last. It never does when the habit isn't the problem. The behavior is. She was back in the same contacts within days. Same email threads. Same coded scheduling. Same appointments. The pregnancy hadn't been a wake-up call. It was just a complication. And that's when I decided something important. This wasn't about punishing her. It was about removing her ability to weaponize chaos. Remember the buddy who set us up on the first double date? We'll call him B. And his partner, who happened to be P's supervisor at her part-time job. So, up until that point, I hadn't told anyone anything. Because once you speak, you lose control of the narrative. But now I needed leverage that wasn't emotional. He met B first. Not dramatically. Not, bro, she cheated on me. I showed him documentation, email headers, timeline, proof that the baby couldn't be mine. He went quiet. Then he went pale. Then he said something that told me I was about to gain an ally. She's been weird at work, he said. We looped so in next. She didn't believe it at first. Until she saw the emails. Then something clicked. Because there had been small discrepancies at work for months. Nothing major enough to trigger formal investigation. But enough to irritate management. Short drawers. Inventory inconsistencies. Medication logs that didn't line up perfectly. Minor documentation errors that somehow never traced back to her. She was subtle. That's what made her dangerous. So admitted something that sealed it. She's always just. Above suspicion. And that's when the strategy changed. I didn't need to accuse her. I just needed to let the systems she was manipulating tighten around her. She was in school to become an RN. Which meant ethics mattered. Documentation mattered. Background mattered. I didn't send threats. I didn't blast her on social media. I did something colder. I compiled a packet. Clean. Organized. Objective. Termination documentation. Email records showing external transactions during school enrollment. Timeline overlap. Proof of dishonesty regarding medical compliance. No insults. No commentary. Just information. Sent anonymously. 2. The school's compliance office. The hospital's HR department. The licensing board, not as revenge. As risk disclosure. When institutions receive documentation tied to patient care and ethical misconduct. They don't ignore it. They investigate. And investigations don't care about tears. Her school had a zero-tolerance clause for ethical violations. Expulsion. Her hospital affiliation. Terminated. Licensing review. Opened. When you build your future on trust and falsify that trust, you don't collapse dramatically. You unravel administratively, which is much worse. Her parents had always seen me as temporary. They kept the house lease in their name, just in case. Irony has a sense of humor. When she was fired, She told them it was a misunderstanding. When she was expelled, she blamed politics. When the licensing review began, she blamed retaliation. Parents believe what's comfortable until paperwork shows up. Eventually, the truth caught up. Not because I screamed it, because official letters arrived. Investigations, requests, questions. And once institutions start asking questions, family denial cracks. They didn't call me to yell. They didn't accuse me. They just stopped inviting me, which was fine, because I wasn't trying to stay. Here's the part that surprises people. I never wanted the child hurt. The baby didn't choose any of this. Paternity testing eventually identified the actual father. He stepped up, had stability, had resources, had documentation that wasn't soaked in scandal. The courts don't reward chaos. Custody shifted. Visitation limited. And for the first time in this entire saga, something felt balanced. Not victorious. Balanced. People expect me to say I felt amazing. I didn't. I felt clean. There's a difference. She lost her job, her school placement, her professional future, her social network. Custody, I lost. An illusion. A few years. Some furniture and gained. Legal safety. Emotional distance. Absolute clarity, the best part? I didn't have to destroy her. I just stopped protecting her. And once I stepped out of the blast radius, the system did the rest. She thought she could build a life on manipulation. She thought I'd react emotionally. She thought I'd explode. Instead, I documented. I waited. I positioned. And when the truth finally surfaced, I wasn't the baby daddy. And I wasn't the victim either. I was the only one who planned ahead.